There we go. Okay. Welcome. Thank you guys for coming along and registering for today's free lunch and learn session, which is from incidents to improvement, what to do next. There are a few new people here and some regular faces and names. So welcome to you guys who have come back along for these free sessions, and welcome to you if you're new to Thrive and these lunch and learns. My name is Kathy Kirby. I'm one of the directors at Thrive and a registered nurse as well. And up in the corner, we have Kate Lamont, who is co-director at Thrive, and she is a registered occupational therapist. We have had Thrive, we're in the middle of our 4th year. It's gone very quick this year and time generally. And we love doing work like this, which is supporting you guys who support older people across health and aged care in both community and residential settings. And we do that through training like today. We have these sessions once a month. And we also go and support organisations with training and education, as well as some service support. And in particular, we have a passion for dementia care. So if you are interested in any of our additional training topics, we will send you a link after today's session. Now, some housekeeping. Thank you very much for putting yourselves on mute. Like I was saying, we have a lot of attendance at these sessions, so it makes our life easier. We will have time for questions at the end of today's session, and we'll stop the recording before that, so you can feel free to ask away. If you have any questions during the webinar, please do use the chat, and Kate will be monitoring that and will interrupt me if needed to address a question at that time. And as I was saying, if you're late to jump in, we are recording this session and we upload it onto YouTube. So we have Thrive Aged Care Consultants YouTube channel, and we have lots of free training content on there. So please do share the link with your teams, like and subscribe so you know when we upload new content. Did you like that one? And yes, feel free to use this with your teams as well. That's why we do these sessions. No point reinventing the wheel. So sharing is caring. Okay, so today, what are we going to be talking about? Today, we are focusing on how we start identifying meaningful areas for improvement. And we're going to talk about how we move beyond just the reporting and the incidents that we might receive day to day in our roles, and how we actually go about making meaningful and sustained improvements in our workplace. We're going to have a look at what really drives incidents and how we can really get to the bottom of what the root cause is. And we're also going to talk about practical steps to test and implement change as well. So before we get into today's session, why did we pick this topic? And the reason is it is important. And I think we all know it's important because we do work in health and aged care, and we know the importance of identifying risks and concerns and addressing incidents as they happen. But it is also really important and outlined several times through the new Aged Care Act and through the new strengthened aged care standards, and also the national quality and safety standards as well. And you'll see here that there is a highlighted in bold, there are a few statements specifically around supporting innovation and continuous improvement and ensuring that high quality care. And also that the organisation is responsible for driving and monitoring improvements as well. So we are required under legislative requirements and regulations, whether that's health or aged care. But if you've seen us before, you know that that's not why we're here. We're not here about ticking that box and being compliant, because we all want to do much more than that. But it is important to know that it is an area of focus within all of these. So let's get into it. And my first question to you guys, and please do use the chat, is how many times have you seen the same incident or incidents continue to happen in your workplace? How many of you have incidents that you see consistently each month being reported? Too many. Yep. And what might they be? Great question, Kate. Just give you a minute. Quite often numerous. Falls, yes. Falls, yes. I've been nursing 22 years. Falls has always been top priority. Medication, ratios, falls, wounds. Yeah, lots of themes here. Yep, that we see incidents occurring, and I'm getting lots of plus falls. Lucky I took a punt and I used falls as an example for today as well, because it is something that we see consistently, don't we? We see incidents happen month on month. We do a lot of work behind the scenes to try and identify what the issue is, but do we always have an outcome that is an improvement? Not always the case. And we're going to talk about why that might be happening today. So, going by your feedback, this probably sounds a little bit familiar to you, and that is that it's the second day of the month and you get a call or an email from your manager and you're told that your falls rate has gone up from last month. So last month it was 5, this month it's gone up to 15. You've had 2 SIRS as well, or 2 OVA incidents, and you've had 6 behavioural incidents reported as well. So all of your indicators are on the increase. So my question to you is, what happens next? Does this scenario sound familiar? And what are the next steps that you usually take? And feel free to pop it in the chat. Just give you a sec. So I'll tell you what we generally see and what I certainly did when I was a new manager. And that was I was an action person. And so I jumped straight into action mode. I've got somebody saying they investigate. Amazing. So sometimes what happens is we get information and we get the raw data, and we're asked to please explain or please put a plan together, and we jump straight into action mode. Because as clinicians, we have really good intuition. As leaders, we want to fix that problem and we want to get on top of it quickly. And we've got some of that information available to us and an idea of probably what's missing. And so we get straight into action mode and we start by putting a solution in place. So sometimes, though, we might skip a few steps along the way. So intuition is great and facts are really important, but sometimes we're a little bit quick off the mark when we jump to our solutions. So what do we tend to do? What we tend to do is the stock standard responses, and actions, which are sometimes we re-audit, or we add a new audit to our toolkit and we start doing those, and we review people's paperwork and care plans. We make sure that we put strategies in place for the individuals. So let's say we're talking about falls here or responsive behaviours, we put strategies in place, which, to be fair, are generally standard ones. So we generally have a list of strategies that we try and we put those in place and we do it for everybody. Then we go and we educate our team. So we gather them all together and say our incidents have increased and this is what we've done and this is what our audit said and these are the strategies we want in place. And then what do we find is the next month, the incident numbers maybe have improved a little bit, but generally stay around about the same. So the question here is, why haven't we seen any meaningful improvement? Because we can see here, this is a lot of effort. We've done paperwork, we've done auditing, we've spoken to our team, we've put a plan together for training, but we're not seeing actual meaningful improvement. And so this is the part of the planning that we need to consider. Where might we be missing a step? And this is where the importance of taking a pause is. Yes, we are action people, and yes, we have directives to make improvements, but sometimes we jump a little bit quick into that solution. And what we find is, just like this image here, we've got 2 roads to go down. Now, if we take the raw data that our manager has given us and we don't necessarily investigate and go into more detail to identify that root cause, we might invest a whole lot of time and energy, like I showed on that last slide, where we go down the left-hand side of the path and we put all of these strategies in and we do all of this work and we don't really see meaningful outcome. And the reason why we don't see that generally is because we haven't got to the root cause of the actual issue. And if we get to the root cause and we do take this pause, and we'll talk about the steps to do that, then we can change our path, and potentially we're going down that right path instead of the left. And that right path is where we can see improvements actually happen, and those meaningful improvements. So it's really important that we do take this time, even in our busy schedules and even with all this sense of urgency, to address an issue, to take that pause, to identify the root cause so that we don't unintentionally take that wrong path with all our solutions. Because our time is valuable and we don't want to be investing it, spending time doing everything I had on that previous slide if it's not the right solution for the problem. Okay. So if we don't do this, it can lead to those minimal improvements or maybe a slight improvement for 1 month, but then we go back to status quo again with those high incident numbers, and we see that repeat of the cycle that we have been experiencing. So what we want to do instead is the 3 Ps, and that is prepare to plan. And this is where we are not good. This is a lot of training as a nurse. I know it's jumping straight into solution. Where we want to be spending a lot of our time is in that preparation time and that planning time. Okay, so we want to shift where we're investing our energy, where I put all that energy on that slide where I was talking about all those solutions. We want to shift that energy and we're going to invest it in preparation and planning first. So when I'm talking about preparation, we're talking about gathering more information to understand the full story. Now, I know a few of you have said in the chat that you need to investigate a little bit more and look at trends and patterns, which is fantastic because sometimes that's the step that we skip when we are looking at these incident numbers, okay? Data gets a little bit of a bad rap because we collect a lot of it, but the idea of collecting data is that we actually use it and that it should be meaningful and purposeful. Okay, so what we're wanting to do is look at all that information, look at that data that we collect. So that might be the incident data, and I'm going to give you an example in a minute. And we also want to be involving our team, because there is no I in team. You guys can't do everything yourself as a leader and as a manager. We want to be involving the team in the process as well. And when we're involving the team, that is also gathering data, because we have data that we have from the actual incident itself and the information surrounding that. But what that doesn't tell us is always the full story. So when we involve our team, we're getting different perspectives and different feedback, and you can help to identify where there might be gaps in knowledge or skill or other barriers to that improvement being effective that we might not get just purely from those numbers or the details within the incident form itself. Okay, so really important to engage your team. The next step is to plan, and that is, again, planning with your team. Again, because you can't do everything yourself, number one. Number two, your team have really important insights and perspectives that we need to consider, because we need to take a broader view when we're looking at making a sustained improvement. We might have great ideas that are really on the right track, but we really need to make sure that we're hearing different people's perspectives, different barriers to that improvement. And also, if you're wanting to get people on board with a change and you're asking people to do things differently, they need to understand why before they're going to do it. So if we think yourself, if somebody asks you to fix a problem, you're not going to prioritize that if you don't understand why it's a problem in the first place. Okay, so this is a really important aspect as well, making sure that you get your team on board. And when with your team, you want to identify what actions you're going to take based on what the story tells you, not just based on what your intuition's saying or your idea, which might be great, but you really need to base it on what that full story and that data is telling you. And the third P is perform. So trying out the plan and evaluating, importantly, if it's effective, because we are really busy people. And what we tend to do is get an idea, put it together, roll it out and do it. And then it's like, that's done. And that's where things fall over as well. Because what we're wanting to do again is invest a little bit more time in evaluating, has it been effective? Because if we evaluate along the way, again, not just not in a month's time, but along the way to see whether it's effective or not, then that can help you make tweaks and it can help you see whether you're on that right track. So you don't get from the second of this month being told you need to address your high incident numbers to the second of next month and realize that nothing that you've put in place has actually been effective because we haven't looked at it in the last month. Okay, so again, investing a little bit of time here can be effective as well. So let's talk about this and let's take the example of falls that we had in this scenario. And we know falls has come up in your feedback as well about something that's constantly front of mind. So if we have a look at the data that we've been given by our manager, and we're going to start with the preparation step. We know that we've had 15 falls this month, and we know that that's an increase from last month. But what we have here is raw data. So we don't know much else other than those 15 falls at this time, and please fix your issue. So what we need to do is do a little bit of investigating, as a few of you have said, and find out more information. So what do we want to look at? We want to look at things like who has had the falls? Is it the same is it 15 different people or is it a few different people? Where was the person when they had the fall? So the location, the environment is really important. What time of the day were the falls? What day of the week were the falls? What was the person or the people doing at the time of the fall? And this one here in particular tends to get missed, okay, because we go off the information that is within the incident form, which is not always filled in with a lot of detail. But what we wanted, it's really important to know, what was the person trying to do when they had that fall? Did the fall result in an injury? And did they have falls prevention strategies in place at the time that they had a fall? So looks like a lot of questions, but a lot of this information we should be able to get from our incident reports that we have gathered, and we should be able to trend this, okay? And if we can't get this information from it, then that's telling us a story as well. It's telling us that we need to do some work with our staff and about how to fill in an incident form correctly, okay? So that we're able to actually analyze and trend this data effectively. So let's say we've gone and had a look at this data and we're still in the preparation step and we're going to start to put the story together. What we found was that there were 4 individuals who had multiple falls during the month. So 4 falls, 3 falls, 3 falls, and 2 falls. And when you looked at all of the information, it said in their notes and it said in the incident form that everybody had fall strategies in place. Out of those 15 falls, 3 resulted in minor injuries, so skin tears. Now, no injury is good, but, it's not fractures, so that's good. We haven't had any major injuries, even though our falls rate has gone up. When we had a look at the time of the falls, we found that they were mostly occurring between 6 and 8 a.m. and 5 and 7 p.m. So pretty much all of the falls happened in those times. That definitely tells me a story, and I'm sure you guys will look at those times and say, I know what was happening then. Break times, handover times, people, moving around a lot, people getting out of bed, people wanting to go to bed after meals. So that's telling us a story as well. They occurred evenly across different days. So there was no particular day of the week that was had more falls. And most of the falls occurred in individuals' rooms. So that was 10 of them, and in the lounge or general areas. So that was the remaining 5. Now, this tells me a lot of information. And this is something that I would want to take back with my team and have a bit more of a conversation about. And what I want to understand is why. Like, why are some of these things happening? And if any of you have kids, you will know what is their favorite question to ask you. Why? And what do they ask you after they ask why? But why? But why? But why? Yep. And it continues to go on until they're satisfied with an answer. Okay. So this is what we want to do as the next step with our team is we want to ask why. We want to turn into a kid again. And we want to sit down with our team and we want to ask, why is this happening? So our first question that we want to ask our team is, why is our falls rate higher in April? Because it's gone from 5 to 15. And we speak to the team and we find, well, 4 individuals have had multiple falls. Well, actually, your team tell you we had all that education in the last 2 months on falls reporting and the importance of reporting rolls out of bed as well. So we did a big blitz 2 months ago. So people are actually reporting falls more, and they've started reporting rolls out of bed. So that was something that we did a few months ago that was effective. So that's great. So we actually want people to be reporting falls. So that's interesting to know. But what we want to really know is how come we've had 4 individuals having multiple falls? So that's our next why. Why have the individuals had multiple falls? And then we ask the team, and the team say, well, they were ambulating without assistance. That's telling us a story. It's telling us that that's the perspective of the staff. And that's also, it seems to be what's happening. Okay. So we ask another question. Why were they ambulating without assistance? And the staff tell you, well, they needed to go to the toilet. They had been incontinent and they were actually uncomfortable. They were wanting to get changed. And the staff didn't answer the buzzers in a timely manner. So that's telling us a story as well. So then we're going to ask again, well, why have the individuals been incontinent? And we find that, well, actually 2 individuals didn't have a continence assessment completed. And people who did have a continence schedule, we weren't following it. So this is an example of how we can gather some more information and more story with our team. And we keep asking why until we're satisfied with an answer, and helps to point us in a direction of where our root cause might be. So if we think about all of this information that we've just gathered here and potentially focusing on the bottom here, why was the final why question, where do you think we might plan our next steps? Where do you think we might invest our energy to address our falls rate? So remembering we're wanting to reduce it from 15 because that's increased a lot from last month. And we've done all of this investigation and we've found, after asking why and looking at it all, there seems to be a problem with continence. And that's possibly the biggest contributing factor to our falls rate. And that's where the data and the story is telling us to direct our attention. So this is where we want to move into the plan. So what action are we going to take? Well, so we've done the preparation step and we found that we've had the 4 individuals have fallen multiple times in their bedrooms between 6 and 8 and 5 and 7 p.m. Because they didn't have their continence needs met. So our plan needs to address what we have identified up the top here, what I've just read out. And so our plan might be that we're going to complete continence assessments and plans for each individual because we found that not everybody had one. We're going to update the individual's fall prevention strategies to include continence care. So not just the falls mat, low bed, all the things that we tick, that we say that we do. It needs to be individual to the person's needs to actually have meaningful improvement in our falls rates. We need to obviously communicate with the staff. We also have identified these times are really peak times for falls rates. So we need to review break times and activities during that time. And we need to have a look at our buzzers as well. You know, are they being answered in a timely manner between those high risk times? And we need to do some work around that. We need to provide general education about continence assessment to staff because we've identified that that's a big gap. And we need to feed back to staff about the contributing factors to the higher falls rate. And perhaps if we're going to do an audit, because we do like to add an audit on, don't we? Maybe we want to focus our attention on continence assessments rather than falls strategies, because we already know everyone's saying falls strategies are in place, but our falls rate's going up. So it's not addressing the issue. Our issue is actually around continence care, and that's what's leading to our falls. Okay. And we're going to continue to review this data every week. So we're going to have a look at our falls data, and we're going to see if all of these strategies that we're putting in to reduce our rate is actually being effective. Okay. But before we get to that, we need to set a goal of how much do we want to reduce our falls rate and by when? Because otherwise, how long's a piece of string? Yep. I want to reduce my falls rate. Well, that's great. Do you want to reduce it by 1 fall, or do you want to reduce it by 15 falls? So we need to be a little bit specific, and we need to set a goal, because everybody needs to know what we're working towards. So maybe we set a goal for reducing the falls rate back down to 5, because we had 5 falls the previous month. We know that, we're encouraging people to report falls, and we're encouraging people to be mobilizing around, and we work with a population who are generally at a higher risk of falls. So we're probably not going to get to 0. And that's not necessarily what our goal is, but we definitely need to reduce what our falls rate is. So we're going to set a goal of reducing the falls rate from 15 to 5 by May 2026. Okay, so by the next month when we're reporting our data. And then we're going to get into a bit of Nike mode, and we are just going to do it. So we've spent this time preparing and planning, and now's that action point that we did right at the very beginning, and then we decided we were going to pause, because now we're going to be going down that right-hand turn instead of that left-hand turn with our energy. So we are going to try out our improvement ideas that I just spoke about. We're going to continue to monitor to see, is it effective? Have we identified any other issues along the way? We are going to act on those issues if we identify any along the way, and we're going to keep our team updated, and we're going to celebrate the wins. So if we get to a week with minimal falls, if we get to a week and we identify that everyone's had their continence assessment done, if we get good feedback, that's all important wins to celebrate, because we want to bring people on the journey. And for meaningful improvements and sustained improvements, everybody needs to be on the same page, and we need to be consistent. Okay, these are the steps that we tend to miss. We miss the planning at the start and the celebration and the monitoring at the end, and we just do in the middle. Okay, so if we redistribute where we put our energy to the beginning and the monitoring, then we have more chance of having that sustained improvement. Okay, and that meaningful improvement. So the steps that I just spoke about, and I was a model for improvement, sorry. And you may have heard of the PDSA cycle before, but this is the model for improvement that we like to use at Thrive when we're working with services, because it's quite easy to follow. And it's basically like a recipe. So it helps you to focus and follow a framework of the steps to follow, which we just spoke about, so that we don't get busy and skip steps and guess. We can follow specific steps to increase your chances of that outcome that you want. And it starts with these 3 questions, which are what we just spoke about very quickly there. And again, the 4 steps of planning, doing, checking your progress, and then acting on those, any changes that need to be made. But very big investment in that planning and this step here up the top to get yourself set up for success. Okay. So in summary, from today's session, reporting incidents is very important, but it is the first step of a process. So collecting data does not mean that we're going to be improving care. So we actually need to use that data. It needs to be meaningful. And if our data is not meaningful, then we need to do some work on making sure that it is. The way that we have meaningful improvement is when we understand the why behind the incidents. And to understand the why, we need to look at the event and identify all of that detail and that story that we were talking about earlier with our team, so that we target our efforts down the right direction. So we don't go down that left-hand path, we go down that right-hand path where we're actually going to see meaningful improvement happen. Continuous improvement is something that we do every day, all day, every day. We just don't commonly think about it. But when you're following, doing continuous improvement, when we're looking at incidents in particular, we want to have that framework to follow. So you want that recipe to follow so that you have a strategy and we don't skip those steps that we spoke about. And we really want to invest most of our time up front in that preparation and planning stage, and then have that focused attention on the doing stage. Okay. By doing this and following that framework, then you'll have increased your chances of success of that outcome that you want. Okay. So before we get into 1 o'clock on the dot, we're going to pause the recording and ask for questions. But if you're interested in quality improvement or false, like everybody is, we have a few different programs available for support. I will send you some links after today's session in the email with the recording. We love continuous improvement here, so we would love your feedback to help us prepare for future Lunch and Learn webinars. So if you could take less than a minute, it's 3 or 4 questions, to give us some feedback, we would very much appreciate that. And I'll also send you a link in the email after today as well. But as I wrap up for questions, thank you very much for coming along, and stick around if you do have any questions. I'll stop the recording, and otherwise we'll see you next month.